What up, what up, what up, what up? Y'all, I hope everybody's having a great. Let me turn this light down. This ridiculous. Ooh, turn that light down. Y'all, I hope everybody's having a great start to the week. Sorry for last week. I wasn't here. I was on my honeymoon with my beautiful wife, and so I wasn't about to start streaming live from where we were because the internet reception wasn't that great. So now we're back in this cold ass weather. So um, today I wanted to have a conversation with you about how to take care of your clothing. Right? It's going to be a pretty quick one, unless you guys have any questions. And remember, this is a conversation, not a lecture. So if you are trying to ask questions or you have an opinion on something, I'm more than welcome to have it. Just want to double check this. This is still a little too bright for me. There we go. And so I want to talk about taking care of your clothing, and this is because of two things. The first one is right now it's actually getting cold, so fellas are transitioning their wardrobe, or they already have transitioned their wardrobe, so they're not thinking about like storage or thinking about how they actually need to take care of the items that they have. And two, because a lot of guys just don't take care of their clothing. Like they just don't have a sense of awareness on how to take care of their clothing. And the first and most important element in maintaining and sustaining your wardrobe, because if you've been rocking with me for a little while, and even if you haven't, you know that it's not about what you can afford to buy, it's about what you can afford to maintain. And maintenance is actually the most cost effective or costly thing that you can do when it comes to your wardrobe. So a lot of guys, and this is also true in life, right? You maintain relationships, or you have to work that much harder to try to uh, create new ones, right? And especially as we get older, I don't want to do that shit. I don't know if you do. I don't want to do that shit. It's too time consuming for you to try to cultivate this new relationship with somebody, because a lot of the stuff that used to matter doesn't matter anymore. Uh, Instead of you trying to create new memories or new elements of your existing relationship. So same thing is true when it comes to your. There are some things that unfortunately you just can't keep, and then there's some things that if you maintain them, you can actually keep for forever. So just a quick story. I had a homie. I have a homie, and he has a barber jacket. So if you guys don't know, barbers are the kind of country military inspired, or both stuff is military inspired biker. But Barber's more of like a chore country jacket. And so he has one, it's waxed, and he was telling me, like I learned from him, he was like, yeah man, I'm going to go get this jacket re-waxed from Barber. And I was like, oh that's dope. And he was like, yeah, they'll take care of my jacket. I'll send them $200 and they'll re-wax my jacket. Now the jacket, barber jackets can range anywhere between $800 and $1,500 depending on which one that you're getting. So for $200, he's maintaining a $1,500 jacket that he's more than gotten the cost per wear out of, right? And so that's for the live men, not necessarily for the freshmen, but it is a great knowledge base for you to maintain that level of intention when it comes to taking care of your items. So we're going to work from the bottom up. We're going to work from shoes, pants, your shirts, knits, and then your jacket, right? So this is not going to be super long, but if you have any questions about maintaining, sustaining, or taking care of your items, by all means, let me know and I'll answer the question. And if you have rebuttals or you have anything that you could put me up on, I'm not above learning. So make sure that you share that with me, whether it's live or you're watching on the replay. So when we first start to talk about shoes, right? And I'm guilty of this as well. Guys do not necessarily maintain their shoes by doing one very, very simple thing, and that's letting them rest, right? So I have a favorite pair of shoes, especially for work, that I wear because they have a rubber bottom, and if I'm on my feet for 8 to 10 hours a day, leather shoes, especially if they don't have a insole, can be uncomfortable, and they also can put strain on my back, as well as knees, like all these other different types of things. Because leather shoes aren't necessarily meant for you to be wearing them for 8 to 10 hours a day on your feet. So rubber bottoms are usually better. So a few of the shoes that I have that have rubber bottoms, I tend to lean on more and more. And there's been some times where I had not let my shoes rest. And so the reason why you want to let your shoes rest is because of three things. First thing is that you want to make sure that the moisture that is in your shoes, they gets to dry and gets to release bacterias in there. That will help alleviate the smell, especially if you're doing the second thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to taking care of your shoes. The second thing is that it will allow the shape to be maintained. So a lot of guys just think, oh, I'm not wearing my shoes because I don't want the smell to be in there, but they don't think about the top of that leather and how the leather can be being worked so much that it's not allowing to keep its shape. Now, unless you have some soft leather shoes, right, or unlined shoes, then you're going to need to maintain that structure of the shoe. This is also why you've got so many crease lines in your shoes, even though you may have had them for 2 months, right? If you're wearing them every day, you're not giving them the opportunity to become restored and keeping the look of the overall shoe. The last thing also is just something simple. It doesn't allow you to have like shine, right? So if you're taking care of your shoes and shining them up, then it doesn't give you the opportunity to let your shoes rest and for that the shoe polish to do what it needs to do. So I've been guilty of that with my leather shoes, especially not so much my suedes, but with my leather shoes, I would try to shine them up or to replace scuffs or whatever right before I'm leaving out. And so I'll wear those shoes out and then they will come back even more scuffed than when I wore them out because they didn't, the wax, not the wax, the polish didn't have enough time to dry for me to come back and buff it off. And the process of taking care of the shoes was not done properly. Or if I'm doing my suedes, if I'm putting my rain stain repellent on there and I haven't let them dry, then it's defeating the purpose if I go out and the shoes get wet, right? So in those spaces, especially when it comes to your shoes, you want to make sure that you give them time to breathe and rest for that purpose, for those three purposes. The other thing that you want to make sure that you're doing, that's something that a lot of guys know about, but they don't necessarily employ or utilize, is making sure that you have shoe trees. And I'm not talking about the plastic shoe trees that you can go on IKEA and get for $3 or something like that. I'm talking about wooden cedar shoe trees. And the reason why you want to do that is because again, it's going to maintain the shape of the shoe, but it will also absorb all that moisture, sweat in your feet. And if your shoes happen to get wet, the great thing is you can pop those in there and it will start to absorb some of the moisture from the rain, right, or the precipitation. The other thing that you want to think about there when your shoes do get wet, just as a caveat, is making sure that you have some leather oil. And that's because we forget a lot of times that leather is or was a living organism. It's a skin, right? So you want to make sure you put lotion on your shoes so they're not ashy. Just like you want to make sure you lotion your hands and your elbows and your ankles so that those aren't ashy as well. So when it comes to your shoes, simple but important and effective if you are utilizing them. When it comes to your pants, a lot of guys are not thinking about these elements, and these are actually really important when it comes to your pants. Are you hanging them upright? And are you hanging them on the proper hanger? And then are you paying attention to tension points, right? So consciously, for a lot of guys, we don't think about how we are sustaining our pants, especially our pants. I don't know why it's not thought of as much as the other elements that guys do think about. But when it comes to your pants, hanging them up wrong can actually affect not only the crease line but the life of the pant. And a lot of guys aren't thinking about this because when they hang them up, they just hang them up every which way, right? I've had guys who are well dressed who hang up their pants terribly, and I'm like, you just spent $1,500, $800 on pants on these trousers, and you're hanging them up like you spent $10 on them. And I wouldn't care if you spent $10 on them. Maybe you found a great deal at a thrift shop or Goodwill. But if you're not taking care of them, then what happens is you affect the crease line. And so the creases don't just fall out, they actually become wrinkles. And so you have to go to a dry cleaner, you have to go to a tailor to have those pressed. Now, what happens if your tailor doesn't know how to press properly, or you try to press these pants out yourself? Well, now you have an irregular crease, so then you have to press those again. And if you keep on hanging them up improperly, you're having to put heat on your trousers consistently. So it's breaking down the fibers that are in wool pants. And so it's not a good look for them. Or if you're wearing jeans or you're wearing chinos that are cotton, what you're usually going to find is that you start to have a sheen on your pants. So now those pants that probably could have lasted you 3 or 4 years, right? Maybe longer than that, especially wool pants, they are now having to be thrown out within the year because you didn't do something as simple as hang up your pants properly. So typically when you hang up your pants, and I'll just show you an example because we're here. You always want to hang your pants up here first, right? You want to match the crease of the pant so that the crease is aligned. And then just make sure that you drape them over with the fly open. I don't know why some of you guys insist on leaving your fly zipped up and your buttons buttoned. Why y'all do that? Stop doing that. Right? These are cotton pants, so they're still a little wrinkled. I still have to press them. Um, but that will allow your pants to drape better. And if you, as long as you have the heavier side, either equidistant or a little bit heavier than that shorter side, then your pants won't fall off, right? I also recommend that guys get these hangers, pant hangers, right? If you're not throwing them on with the suit, have your pant hanger so that you have longevity with what you're wearing. Now, the really fancy ones, you could have a velvet piece at the bottom that will hold your pants exactly where they need to be. That's fancy. That's sexy if you want to do that. I'm looking for some right now, but you don't have to have those as well, right? So thinking about those elements, just that alone, hanging up your pants correctly can save the life of your items or the life of your pants. The other thing that you want to think about for the live men, not for the freshmen necessarily, if you have flannel pants or you have any delicate types of fabrics that you are wearing, you want to maintain those by making sure that you're not wearing those a lot or that you're putting in a crotch piece or a saddle piece inside of your pants. So when we have our clients that are getting cashmere pants or they're getting silk pants, not so much for the silk, but more so like flannels, linens that we've done this for as well, especially if they're heavier linen. Then what we will do is we'll put what's called a saddle piece into the crotch where we know that there's going to be tension points or stress points so that they can wear down. So what will happen with linen, not so much again, but it can happen with linen or wool or flannel is the little balls that you'll see on the fabric, which we call pilling, will occur on those places that are getting a lot of friction, right? And so you end up having something that starts to break down, and you have holes in your pants. That has happened to me numerous times with numerous flannel pants that I love. Now, once the hole is there, they really can't do a whole lot outside of putting that patch in. But if you put that patch in before it happens, then what has happened for some people, I don't necessarily recommend this, but they can put the saddle in on top of the fabric. Now, if you have the excess fabric, because maybe you got cuffs on unhemmed pants, they'll usually use that, so you can't really tell that there's a difference. But if they need to put it on the inside, once it wears down, a good tailor will kind of strategically cut those holes so that it just looks like a patch job on the inside of the crotch. And so you have essentially a whole new pair of pants right in that space. Somebody said having the wire dry clean hangers are good for steaming shirts in the shower. Don't use fancy velvet hangers for that. Fair. We haven't gotten to shirts yet, Zeb, but we'll get there. Uh, and you can also reweave a hole if you're willing to spend big bucks. Yes, that's for super live men. Um, so there's several reasons why I don't recommend having a reweave on a pair of pants done. One, it's extremely rare to find somebody who knows what they're doing and will do that properly. Most tailors, what they do is one of two methods. They'll take some fabric that's similar in color and they will cut that up into fine fibers and then mix that with something called stitch witchery, which is an adhesive, it's a glue. And so they'll cut those up together, get that in water, spread that over the hole, depending on how big the hole is, and put a back piece on there, right? And then they will iron that out so the fiber looks like it's a part of the flannel, especially with flannels. I've seen this done, right? It's good if they do a good job. It's nice. It's a cool workaround. But what a lot of tailors will do is they will take the pant and they'll just take the thread and just go over it like this. So I've had several pants done like that. I never like the way they feel or they look. So just take care of your pants, right? If you can, if especially if you're getting a fine pair of pants, just have the saddle piece put in there because you know that they're gonna wear down, and you'll be good for taking care of your piece. Uh, Zev lives in NYC, so he has like two places that'll do that. Um, so you should reach out to me and I'll connect you with Zev if you need those restitched. And there's like 10 places or less in the US that still do it. We have a specialist that does it for our knits, which we'll talk about in a second, that um, is one of three people I think that can do knits the way that she does it. Or I'm sorry, not knits, on wool. So she'll actually relieve a hole on a wool piece. Um, and yes, there's probably about 10 people, right? Ten places or people that still have that ability to do it at a high level. And you're probably going to pay about 300 to 400 bucks. So you better really love those pants because you may be paying more for the rehab on them than you did for the actual pants. So that's happened before. So that's what you need to do when it comes to taking care of your pants. Also paying attention to the Zev said we should become we weavers and we'll be set for life. Well, we have to have people who appreciate it and pay for it as well. But and when it comes to your pants, just taking care of those things, those simple things, just hanging it right, hanging your pants right. Pause. That sounds kind of crazy, right? Hanging your pants right can make a world of difference in the longevity that you have those pants for, right? So it's important for you to think through the extra 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 2 minutes that it takes for you to properly hang up your clothing for the life of what it is that you want to sustain and maintain for your closet and for what that says about you, right? So we have your pants. The next thing that we want to think about is shirts. Now, shirts are interesting because I've actually been doing this maintenance wrong when it comes to my shirts, which I changed probably about a few weeks ago, right? So I never recommend 10 to 15 years ago, I was told don't have your shirts dry cleaned, right? They put a whole lot of solvents in there. They usually don't care about your shirts or any of your clothes for that matter. So you want to limit the amount of dry cleaning that you're actually doing. But also, one of the things that people don't think about is the way that they press their items. So when I was getting my clothes dry cleaned, it was always press, no starch. But even if they're using that heavy pressing machine, what I found out from some people was not all, but a lot of dry cleaners can still use solvents when it comes to the steam. There's water that they're using, but there may be a different liquid or different solvent that's going to be in the mixture of the water, so that one, it doesn't like mold or do any of those other things for what they have it in, and that can also affect how your shirt is being cleaned, right, or being pressed at the end. So then I move from there to, yo, wash no starch and then hand press. That's like a $6 or $7. Oh, so the FDA, see, appreciate you, Zev. Um, he said the FDA just banned dry cleaning chemicals today. So that's tells you that something's in there, scary, right? So when it came into you taking care of your shirts, I would say make sure that you launder, don't dry clean, launder, and then hand press. That was like $8 job, $8 price point when I was doing it where I was doing it because it was a quality cleaner. But I started saying like, why don't I just wash my own pieces, right? Wash my own shirts. So what I was doing a lot of times was I was just throwing them into the wash and washing them, and then I would come and press them. Well, it wasn't until probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, a friend of mine was talking to a client, and he was like, "Yeah, when you're done, or when you want to launder these, make sure that you button everything up, your cuffs as well as the placket, to before you wash." And I asked him, I was like, "Well, why do you have to button everything up?" And he said, "Well, just think about it like this: if you're putting your shirt into a washer and it's spinning around, or it's spinning around, depending on how what type of washer you have, and it gets caught on something, especially the old school washers, then it can easily pull on the fabric and it can rip it, it can damage it, or if anything, it can just pull a string right on like a button and that can pop off and you can lose a button, or that could create a hole that you can't really replace. Does it happen frequently? No, but why risk it if you invested into a quality shirt, right? And so after that, I was like, I'll be buttoning all my shirts when I need to launder them. And one of the tricks that I'm using now is as soon as I take off my shirt, especially if it's going to be button up or a dress shirt, I just go ahead and button it up and then throw it into the uh, dirty clothes hanger. I also will do a spray on the neck and on the wrist of my shirts with OxyClean, and it will sit for the 3 or 4 days before 5 days before it's going to get washed, and so that allows that to work its magic as well, keeping my neck and my wrist from having the stains on them from your neck. My neck ain't dirty though. I promise you, I wash. Right. So you have those elements that will help maintain the life of a shirt. And with shirts being somewhere in between like $100, especially for quality shirts, to we sell shirts as much as $650 for your shirt. I'm not going to I'm not going to just take care of that any type of way. I want to make sure that I maintain the life of the shirt, right? Um, is your friend single and do small washes? This never happens. Think of how much time you're going to waste buttoning for no reason. Um, I still will button it because, like I said, it takes 2 minutes. It it doesn't take a long time to button all those shirts. I don't do it in one sitting because that could take 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But for me, it's worth taking care of the items that I have with making sure that they're not damaged, because that's happened before. Also, just as a caveat, make sure for whatever reason this has happened for a few guys, you don't dry your cotton shirts. You just let them air dry. Or another thing that we're going to talk about in a second, I will press the shirts when they're damp, right? So if they've been sitting for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, or I went to sleep, did it before I went to got my clothes out, my shirts out before I'm going to sleep, then I'll just press them. I'll press them out the next morning while they're still damp, and it is the best press. I know what's in, my iron, just water, and so it's a better press, and I don't have to use as much steam because the heat from the item is keeping it pressed, right? So yeah, I still like to take the time to button them and make sure those things are working. You take the collar stays out, you may lose those. That doesn't really damage your shirt. It's just annoying when you lose collar stays if you don't have a lot. I got a lot, so I don't really bother with that. But I try to take them out because my wife gets upset if I leave those in there. So your shirts are important there. It's also important to make sure that your shirts are pre-shrunken before you wash them the first time, right? With some of our vendors that we use, we have to have them laundered, have dress shirts laundered 3 times, especially if they're going to be, or especially if they're custom made, right? And then some are already pre-shrunken. You want to make sure that you're not mixing those um, with other items that could die. That's happened numerous times. I lost 2 of my favorite shirts because my wife accidentally put them in with another color, and they ended up staining my shirts. And you can't get those stains out. And you can try, but it's not really um, good there. Zeb Color said more annoying if the collars stay snaps in the wash. Yeah, and the worst. Yeah, because then it can be a headache, right? So you want to maintain those elements of your shirts because your shirts are the things that actually sit next to your skin. And a lot of guys just do not think about this. When you're wearing shirts, they will it rest against your skin. And I had a guy who recently ended up catching a rash because of the solvents that were being used by the dry cleaners. And he also didn't realize, for whatever reason, I don't know why this happened, but for his dress shirts, he started to garner like irritations with the fabric that he was using, the fabric detergent that he was using. So you got to think about these things. If you maintain those shirts, not only is it going to be comfortable and look great, it will also maintain the comfort level of how you need to move. If it's a seasonal shirt, whether it's flannel, cotton flannel for the winter and fall, or a linen cotton blend for the spring and summer. If you think about these things, these are all natural fibers. And the more that they have any chemical put on them, the more brittle they become. So they start to lose their pliability and their softness and uh, their functionality because you have altered it by putting all these chemicals in. So take care of your shirts because they frame, if you've been rocking me for a little while, they frame your face, but they also frame your disposition and how you want to move throughout the day. And also have a button, um, also button the top 2 buttons on the hanger so the shirt doesn't hang back. That's from Zeb Kohler. Great, great advice right there as well. So then we can start thinking about your jackets. Now, the jackets are interesting because one, jackets are pretty self-cleaning. So your pants as well as your jackets are self-cleaning if they're wool. Now, people don't think about this, but wool is a natural fiber, is a living fiber, and it has a oil in it called lanolin, right? So that is a oily substance which is a natural deodorizer. So for the longest time, I was also telling people, hey, just put your um, suit or put your pants in the shower with you, right? And it will steam everything out and it'll be great. It wasn't until probably about 2 years ago that somebody was like, you don't even have to put those in the shower. If you just leave your suit out, just leave it out. There's a natural deodorizer that will release most of the chemicals. Now, if you've been smoking or you have heavy perfumes on or any of those different types of things, that may not just naturally come out. But your natural scent, for the most part, will start to leave within 24 hours. This is why you have to let your items rest at least 24 hours because that will shake out wrinkles, that will shake out odors. As long as again you're not super funky, you're super funky, you got to make sure. Um, this is why we don't recommend. I definitely don't recommend you taking to your suits, but your jackets or your suits to the dry cleaners. So Kohler just said, you got to protect your lanolin. The dry cleaners will slowly kill it. So every time that you take your suits to the dry cleaners, you're killing your suit. Actually, you're actually wasting more money on that suit having to be replaced. And if it's one of your favorite suits, that really sucks because what they're doing is they're putting all these chemicals that you may not be aware of, even though the FDA is banning them using chemicals. You're going to find that what's going to happen is they're going to find some other alternate. It's not going to be a natural solvent, right? It's still going to be chemical. So you're damaging your suit when you could just let it rest. And then if you want to make sure that all of the odors and everything are out, you can put it into the shower with you, let that moisture get into it, and then sit it out, or put a steamer to it, and that will help release the odors as well from your jacket and your paint, and it will allow it to kind of reset. If you do that, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not necessary. If the wool is a quality wool, especially the more quality the wool, the better the lanolin, and the more you can just let it rest on its own, and then put it back into your closet, and it's good, right? Now, guys have been like, well, what happens if the jacket gets stained? Okay, if you have a jacket that gets stained, you don't take it to the dry cleaner to have it dry cleaned. You take it to the dry cleaner to have it spot cleaned. So all you want them to do is to address that one spot on the jacket, and they will usually have to do this with by hand, or they will have to have a special process that they'll go through to make sure that the item is dry cleaned, but it is cleaned, and they're different processes. So if that's the case, then you can make sure that you're maintaining the lanolin, taking care of the lanolin, but you're not having the entire piece clean. And when they do that, you can, if you want to, you can have them press the jacket and it's ready to return. If you are storing your jacket, you did a virgin Australian summer wool for uh, your spring summer wardrobe, right? And you're about to store that away. Then, when it comes to your jacket, because we didn't talk about storage for pants or for your shirts, but if you're, we'll talk about those in a second. But if you're gonna keep your jacket stored, then have it pressed, right? Have it hand pressed real quick, then put it in plastic and then put it in a garment bag. The reason why you want to put it in plastic is because it's another safeguard from you getting moths. Now, if you again want to be a live man here, you can put your cedar trees or cedar wood into the garment bag so that it is protected again from the plastic or from the moths that may be in your house. And the wildest thing about moths is you don't even have to see them. And before you know it, you're opening up something and moth is flying out. Like I have no moths in my house. I haven't seen any moths in my house. And it would be just my luck that if I'm not taking care of my items and doing those necessary safeguards, that come summertime, I open my pieces up and there's holes in them. No moths have flown out, nothing has touched it, but it's damaged now. Right now, I got to call one of those weavers to spend $200 to fix it. So, just taking the preventative maintenance will actually be a benefit for you if you're just thinking through, like, okay, I'm about to put this up. Let me make sure that these things and these items are covered. Well, if it's just a day to day or it's in season, then my homie Vlad, who we always meet on Wednesday, so make sure you check us out too for Miserable Mastermind, was putting me up on game about brushing my suits. I knew that, but I didn't think about it as much, right? So brushing your suits is a great way for you to maintain the life of the suit because it will brush any dirt off, any sediment that may have got on there. You can just brush that off, and it keeps everything fresh and vibrant. right? Again, after I warm my suit, I let it rest, and it is restored. It looks like it's supposed to, right? And then hitting the little fabric brush on there to get everything off is a great way to make sure that my piece is ready whenever I need it. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? So that's for your jacket. And when it comes to your knits, I'm always big on making sure that you're taking care of two things. One, you're taking care of the body and the neck of your knits, and then you're also continuing to sustain the look of the knit, because the knits are going to stretch, but they're also going to pill, which is what we were talking about before with the flannel. So if you have a knit and you are putting it on a hanger, for instance, right? Again, you guys know better, and yet you still do this. Guys will put a sweater on a hanger and then wonder why they stick up like this. And it's because they're not paying attention to how that garment is hanging on the hanger, right? If you're going to put your knits on a hanger, I never recommend doing this, right? But if you're going to make sure that you have a bulky hanger that is going to be maybe about this big on your shoulders to maintain the width of the shoulders. If you're going to do that though, it's going to take up mad space in your closet. So why not just fold them and make sure that they are clean and folded properly? It takes 10 seconds to fold your sweaters and then to put them back up. What I also recommend doing in this space is making sure that you wash your sweaters. Again, this is something that I've had some guys tell me that they've taken their sweaters to the dry cleaners, which seems like a super no go. But a lot of other guys have been like, well, how do I take care of my sweaters? And so I recommend two wears, and then you probably need to wash them. And I always recommend hand washing them. You put a little detergent into the sink, you put a little woolite into the sink, and get to massaging massaging your sweater. All right. Then after that, you just put it into a towel. You roll that towel. If you get a ShamWow, I don't know if they're even selling those ShamWow. If you want me to endorse you, you know what I'm saying? Send a brother a check. Then you can put that in there, roll it up, and get the moisture out. And then you just lay it flat and let it dry. Right. So these things take some work, but they always maintain and sustain your wardrobe. And the interesting thing about this is the more that you do it, the more you start to enjoy it. Like when I started to think about doing this, I was like, man, this is annoying, it's gonna take forever. But that actually became a meditation of sorts for me in getting those things together, because it was something that I had to pay attention to, right? If not, I could mess up a piece, I could damage a piece. If I'm not pressing properly, I could burn something, right? So this becomes a meditative state that allows you to keep your space organized and also to evaluate how you're taking care of those items, which is a great reflection of how you're taking care of the rest of your life in that space. So outside of that, like your accessories, the only other thing I would tell you to really maintain in the accessory space, sorry, before we move on to the accessories, when it comes to storing your sweaters for the off season, I don't do this. I'm going to start doing this. And it was something that I thought about 7 years ago and I just never got around to doing, that I'm like, yo, I'm gonna do this from now on. Is to, instead of putting your knits in a cedar box, or making sure that you put cedar around your knits if you don't have these things. I always recommend vacuum sealing your knits. Now, I will always from now on. And the reason being is because then you don't have to worry about anything getting in there. As long as you clean them before you put your knits away, now you have something that's vacuum sealed. You can easily fold them up and put them under your bed, wherever you're storing them, and you don't have to think about it. And you can even get small bags to vacuum seal now. And you got something that will be out of the way. You can put them in. Somebody that I saw put them into a velvet pouch. Basically, they were all compressed like this. He slid them into a velvet pouch, put them in, put them on the shelf, and it looked dope. So I was like, maybe I'll do that. Another person put them in just a crate or a box, and it looked dope again. And it keeps everything organized. And it's time to bring them right back out, bring them out, bring them out. Open them joints pop right back out. You pull them up, put them onto the shelf. So it's convenient, right? Takes a little bit of time, but it's about the maintenance. So now when it comes to your like socks, when it comes to your ties, both of these are kind of the same. I recommend rolling up your socks, right? One, it makes sure that you can keep them together. Two, it's a better presentation. It's easier to access them. If you just kind of roll them, you can kind of stack them up. And once one falls, you may have to adjust every now and then, fix that every now and then. But it's been a great way for me to maintain my state of my socks. And two, is to make sure that you're letting those items rest, right? You got a favorite pair of socks. This is probably one of the only times that I'll tell you to buy two or three pairs of those socks or two or three pairs of an item because you're going to wear those frequently, right? And you get a hole in your sock, you can fix it. It's a lot of money. If it's not like a tear on the hole, the toe, and they can just kind of put a stitch right over it, it just ends up being more money than it's worth. So why not just have a backup pair of socks? Now, if you're going to get some Ralph Lauren socks that are like $90, can't get three pairs. So make sure that you're maintaining and taking care of those. Again, this is something that you can put into the wash, gentle cycle. You don't have to wash these by hands, but then let them dry by hand, especially if they're wool socks or even cotton socks. I still recommend dry by hand on a towel and going about your business. So just taking care of a few of these different things are going to help sustain and maintain your look and maintain your style over the life of you getting that you having that piece. And to me, that is the the thing that actually will create a sustainable signature style. So as we go through, just so you can think about how long you could keep some items. If you have a great pair of shoes that are Goodyear welted, and you spent, let's say, three to $500 on it. Right now, you can go to Merriman and get a pair of Goodyear welted shoes for $175, and then you can go to Graziano and Greenland and get some for $1,500. $1,500. But they're Goodyear welted. Then all you have to do is take them to a cobbler. Cobbler will resole them. You have a brand new pair of shoes that are already broken in, right? The leather is already comfortable. You don't have to worry about that. So that can last you for a lifetime. I know guys who've had their shoes for 15, 20 years and they still look brand new because they just run them to the cobbler. They make sure that they're shined. They oil the leather, and so it's sustained, right? Um, so, Cole said, you might regret later giving this talk from a closet and not showing an example. An RL purple label over the calf socks at the outlet are $14. Amazing. Yes, but they also have Ralph Lauren purple label over the calves that are 98. If you came into the outlet, or if you come across them at $14, you get three pairs. If you can't, make sure that you get them other places. As far as the examples are concerned, those actually will be coming up in a YouTube video for maintenance sometime in 2025. I haven't broken that down yet, where you'll see examples of all these things. I just want to have this conversation because I had a few clients who had um, some challenges, and I was like, if two people are having them, 200 people are having them, so I want to make sure that we pass this game along. And yeah, I appreciate you for sharing the deals. Does I gotta check? Does Ralph Lauren have a outlet online where you can purchase items? Let me know if you know that. I'll have to check after this, regardless. But so you'll keep those for anywhere between 20 to 40, 50, 60 years. It just depends on how well the leather holds up over time. When it comes to pants, I know guys, again, taking care of their pants. have have had them altered 3 or 4 times, and they've kept their pants for 15 years. And some guys will be like, "Oh, well, that stuff is probably out of style. They got 6 and 7 pleats in them." Some of them do, and some of them they knew what their style was very early on, and it's still sustainable style because it works for how they move and what their personal expression is. So they may have two pleats, and since those are coming back in style, they look cool. They look like they know what they were doing, and they did, right? So those pants have lasted them 10, 15 years, a decade, because they knew how to take care of their item. So Zeph says you can't get those online. That's just what I thought. Um, yeah, you got to find a Ralph Lauren outlet, not necessarily a Polo Ralph Lauren outlet. They're out there. We used to have one in Austin. I think it converted back to a Polo outlet. But um, so if you think about that, your shirts, if we're being realistic, especially with the high amount of wear and where they sit just on your armpits, on your wrist, on your neck, they're going to have wear down. So your natural body odor under your armpits is going to wear your shirts down just by osmosis, right? That's not the right word. Just by natural, the natural degradation. That was not the word I was looking for. But that's where we're going to stick with, right? And so, um, because it's going to degrade over time just by the way that you're wearing it, you probably can get 2 to 3 years of wear out of qualitative shirts. But this is if you're wearing them like super frequently. So my shirts, all my shirts are in a state of needing to be replaced, right? Balling on budget right now. So that may take a little bit more time than I wanted to, but that's just the reality of the situation. The more that you are wearing those shirts, the more they're going to wear down. And so even if you're taking care of those well, you may only get 2 to 3 years out of them. But if you don't have to wear them frequently, then you'll find that you may keep those shirts for 3 to 5 years. So if you're making $150, $200 investment, you're getting a heavy return on these shirts because they're working for you and with you. And for the guys who have the ability, right? And I got plenty of guys who probably do spend $2 or $3,000 on 10 to 15 shirts so that you have a steady rotation. And you can then maintain those one of three ways. You can wear the 15 shirts over and over again, right? You can wear five of the shirts, especially if you do like some of my clients, they get three whites, three blues, three pinks, maybe three in the same type of pattern, and then three that are additional whites. They'll do that, or they'll have like some dressier shirts, three, additional dressier shirts. So they may wear one set of those five over and over again. Once those wear out, they just go get that other next five pair. Will do that. Other people will wear all 15 just in a rotation. And then the other ones will wear those in a space that they are wearing that and then like a polo or a t-shirt because they don't have to be super dressed up. And so they're spacing their wears out during that time. So Cola said Canali dress shirts on sale at Saks off fifth right now for a little over $100. You could do that. Canali has some cool shirts. I'm quickly becoming a fan of a company called Emmanuel Berg. They're not cheap shirts. They're like $250, $275 shirts, but they are beneficial. And if you can have your shirts custom made, if you can't have anything else custom made, I would recommend just having a shirt or your shirts custom made. You start out at I think about $100. The proper cloth, or proper cloth is a little bit more expensive. To a small clothier and 150 $200 shirts, it's worth the investment. It's worth the return. You have something that fits you and that works for you as long as your clothier knows what they're doing, right? Make sure they know what they're doing in that space. So those will probably be the things that will wear down the fastest, but you still have a long lifespan of utilizing them. And then when it comes to your jackets, if you take care of your jackets and you tailored them properly, or you've gotten the jacket that actually works with you, you're not following trends or doing anything that's fashion, which is why I don't recommend you getting something from like Gucci or Louis or any of these luxury but very entry luxury men's as far as the menswear is concerned platforms. I'm perfectly fine with you getting a Ralph Lauren, Purple Label, Blue Label, Black Label, jacket or suit, Canali jacket or suit, because you're going to keep something for about 10 to 15 years within that space. And if you actually got something that works well with your proportions, then you don't have to worry about getting a new jacket anytime soon. You'll want one. You don't need to get one because those will have a lasting style. And I've seen guys do something as cool as little little game right here. You try this on, see how it fits you. They'll switch up their button, right? They'll adjust and re-roll the lapel of the jacket. And they're not going to reset it, but they will re-roll it so it's a more natural roll. Can't do that on all jackets, but you can do that on some jackets, and it refreshes and renews the jackets that they have. So they've kept that for 20, 30, 40 years, and it still works for their body type and it works for how they want to present themselves. Um, Creaming 22 said, "What's the best off the rack shirt on the market?" Well, it depends on what you want to pay for. Like right now, we have an amazing company that we're working with, Finamore. Finamore shirts are $500, and then we have Cesare Attalini. Their shirts are almost $1,000. So the best on the market, the best for the value is probably a better question. And I would tell you a company like Proper Cloth is good at a low end. I would tell you Emmanuel Berg at a higher end. A lot of people love Eaton shirts, ETON, because they have a really great fit, and they're great for the price. Another great company is Stenstrom. They're about like 275 off the rack. All of these are great fits as well. They have like a classic or contemporary model for, I believe, all three of those shirt companies as well, and have some great collars. So you have some opportunities there. Yes, I've heard that people say Zeb Cola says Charbet is one of the best off the rack. They are good. I had a Charvet shirt. It was cool. I think part of it was uh, I didn't like the collar, but the fabric was phenomenal. And Charvet, of course, is one of the legacy brands that you can wear when it comes to shirting. They're phenomenal as far as the fabrication and choice is concerned. Just got to find the right collar for you in that space. But Charvet is really, really great. Um, and Zev says Eaton is overpriced by a lot. A lot of clothes are overpriced by a lot, but fair enough. Um, yeah. So Hamilton, I had not heard of, so thank you for putting me on to Hamilton. I'll do some research on Hamilton. There's well, um, yeah. I would also, if you sell Eaton and Stintrum, I would tell you also to check out Emmanuel Berg. They're dope. Um, and Finamore, if you can afford it, or if you have some people who really want a high quality shirt that's a good value, Finamore is great because again, $500-600 at a very high level is a great price point when you're coming in. Again, I would recommend though, if you can have your shirts custom made, just have them custom made, and then you can get a very high end fabric um, for a good price that is going to fit you, your body type, your proportions, your scale um, properly. So you have that, right? Then again, like I said, your jackets will last you could last you for a lifetime. Could be something that you pass down to your kids if they're your body type. And then when it comes to your accessories, I mean, listen, guys, we all know we've had ties for 15, 20 years, like 30 years, especially now that you're not wearing your ties that much. If you roll up your ties or you hang your ties, I hang my ties um, on the tie rack, right? Then You don't have to worry about them going anywhere. But if you are not taking care of your ties, and just as a caveat here, do not leave your ties tied. I don't know when we got that lazy, or if we're afraid we're not going to be able to get the knot back, or what that is. But when you leave your ties tied, I used to do this. It is going to damage the tie, right? If you invested some money or you've invested some time in looking for these ties, you don't want to you don't want to waste that on getting those, right? On having to try to replace those, and try to find those or look for those, especially depending on the different type of tie that you get. So, as I've told you before, it's not about what you can afford to buy, it's about what you can afford to maintain. And you know that life and style always coalesce, they always tend to lap over. And so I want you to think about those things when it comes to your life and style. Like, understand when you start dressing well, when you start dressing with a certain presence, that's going to attract a certain type of person, whether it's platonic or romantic. You have to be very mindful about how you present those things. So, of course, said again, same with houses, right? You can say, "Yo, I want this big house," right? I've talked to homies since I was in my 20s. Folks be saying, "Man, yeah, I want like what I'm saying 40,000 square feet." You know what I mean? Like, and it'll be dope. We have like, with a family of eight, right? Of six or seven adults, seven adults, and no, six adults and two kids, right? We have a substantial house. I'm not going to say talk about how big it is because it's not about bragging or anything like that. Not that I was, but maintaining this house is like a lot of work. It's either expensive or it's a lot of work because there's so many things that you have to take into account. Something as simple as electricity, when you have a bigger space, shoots up because that's more people utilizing the electricity, or if they're not even utilizing it, just to maintain the maintenance of making sure stuff isn't dusty and it's clean is important. 50 Cent made a great point when it came to this, and thank you for that, Zev. Like, he first got, I believe, Evander Holyfield's mansion when he first got some bread, right? I think this was something like 40,000 square feet, uh 20 bedrooms, t- or something like 40. It was something ridiculous. I don't remember the exact layout, right? But he has this huge space, and so he is like, I'm in this big space, so I'm going to just bring my homies in. He said he wouldn't see people for days, didn't know what they were doing, stuff would show up on his bill, and so then he kicked them all out. But then the place started feeling super eerie. He was like, there was a wing of the house that he hadn't gone down in like 6 months. Lights was off. Stuff started looking like it could have been haunted like crazy because he wasn't utilizing the space, right? So then he had to pay the maintenance cost of keeping that area that he was not utilizing clean. What a waste of money, right? Or I'm getting this fast, expensive car, and I'm not thinking about the maintenance cost. The worst thing, in my opinion, that you can do is go get a Lamborghini if you got the bread, right? I don't have that bread, but like you had the bread, getting a Lamborghini and trying to drive it through Atlanta streets. Our roads are so fucked up. Like, you doing more damage to your car by you having it than by literally shipping it to another place with better roads and then driving it there, letting it sit and drive there. Like, you're getting your wheels rotated every 2 seconds, right? Not every two, but probably every week, every 2 weeks. You're having to replace tires, you're having to replace the suspension, right? All these other different types of things because you're not thinking about the maintenance cost of those pieces. Zokola says a happy man is someone who's happy with what they have. I agree. I think that you being happy about what you have does not mean that you can't go after something greater. But I want you to think about the practicality of some of the things that you have. The guy I watch who says part of the reason why you get a Lamborghini in the city is because you want to subtly, not so subtly, but subtly show off that you can handle all those things, right? You can handle all the maintenance costs. So you look crazy if you have these luxury cars and then you got a dent in your vehicle, right? So, just as an aside, I'm getting a little off topic here, but I've seen people who have like Bentleys, especially here in Atlanta. There's a lot of folks stunting Bentleys or have Maseratis. Again, not great cars, but they have those, right? And then they'll have a big dent in their car. And I remember I have a homie who works at a luxury dealership, and I was like, bro, these people are walking around with dents in their cars. And he was like, oh yeah, that's because they can't afford to like have it fixed. And I was like, well, what happens if somebody gets in an accident and they have a car from you? They were like, oh, they get a loan. And I was like, so how is this working? He was like, they bought it, but they did not buy it through a dealer. They bought it through somebody else over here, somebody else over here. Now we'll still take care of that car, but it's going to be, $8 to $10,000 because we can't verify if we can't verify certain things. And so in that space, this maintenance cost, and so those people could afford to put down the down payment, or they could afford to put down the purchase price for the car. But once it was damaged, they couldn't sustain or maintain it, right? When I was in my early 20s, I wanted to get the Lexus, the GS 300 with the bubble eyes. Remember, it was in belly. Saved up for it, ended up getting a little lump sum of money. Went and got me my Lexus GS. First of all, I got the wrong year, right? It was the year right before the bubble eyes came out, and I didn't properly do my vetting. But now I have this Lexus. I needed 2 weeks in, my back window gets broken out. So I'm like, oh, gotta go get this replaced. It's $800 for me to have that back window replaced. $800 that I don't have. So for 8 months, I'm driving around with a broken window, so much so that the glass starts to degrade and break down. I gotta put a black, or I think I had a clear bag in the back that's catching the wind and flapping and looking. I was looking crazy because I could afford to buy it, but I couldn't afford to maintain it. When I needed to get new wheels, it was like $200-300 per wheels, $1,200 package for me to get my wheels replaced. I couldn't afford it, right? So it's not about what you can afford to buy; it's about what you can afford to maintain. Um, Only thing that you should do, Zepco says, before you can really afford is get married and have kids. Responsibility will push you forward. I'm not gonna say yay or nay that if you can be responsible on your own, do so. Because getting married just adds some pressure if you're not prepared for that. It does do those things, but if you're not prepared for it, it's not necessarily the best decision as well. But as I was gonna say, speaking with the lady, right? When you think about how you live or how you move, be mindful of the types of people that's going to attract. If you're a simple dude at heart, don't position yourself to be that dude, that baller, because she's gonna expect those things after you get her. Right? There's nothing worse, and dudes will call women gold diggers. It's not a relationship conversation, so I'm not gonna stay on this long at all. But dudes will get mad at a woman and call her a gold digger when she actually expects you to maintain the life that you've shown her, right? So if you pulled up to a lady that you were interested in a nice car, but you rented it, it's happened. I hope that's nobody on my who's following or working with me, right? But they rented it and then took them to an Airbnb, seen it done, right? And they are trying to impress this chick, and then when they get with them, they're like, yo, she wants me to take her to all these nice fancy restaurants and do all this other stuff. Man, I don't got that. I don't have that bread. And I'm like, my G, that's what you showed her though. She's not a gold digger if she expects these things that you've shown her. Now, if you're in a space where you pull up, you know, your Maxima, right? You pulled up your Toyota and it's paid for and it's looking good. You took her to a decent restaurant, great conversation, and you guys have exchanged conversation. You guys really building and fostering something dope. And she knows what to expect, right? There's a maintenance that's going to be there. With my wife, there is a certain maintenance that she requires. She is a beautifully simplistic woman, but she needs to travel. So once a quarter, it is on my agenda. It is on my mind and focus that we need to get out and go somewhere. And the great thing that I love about her is that That doesn't require us going overseas. That's maybe, 2 hours up the road to a space where we can get away and be in nature and just experience that calmness there, that quietness there, right? And it's just a change of scenery that revives her. But that's a maintenance cost. And so the more that we start to think about these elements of what we maintain, the better we will be able to sustain the things that we have instead of being out here looking crazy. So let yourself rest, right? Think about the maintenance of yourself because that gets expensive. Lastly, if we're not resting, if we're not making sure that we take some time to decompress, and I'm not talking about zoning out, watching TV or something, I'm talking about some meditation, some stretching. I'm talking about making sure that you are doing something, a pastime that you enjoy, right? Whether that may be cooking for yourself or reading or doing any of those different types of things, those things cost. Black men are one of the highest statistics for heart attacks and stroke because of the unnecessary stress that we put on ourselves. Men in general are one of the highest um, victims of that killer, that silent killer, because we don't find ways to decompress or to de-stress ourselves. It's maintenance cost, and it could cost you the most important thing for any of us, and that's our lives, right? So start thinking about those things. Rest so that you don't have to rest in peace, and make sure that you're sustaining and maintaining how you want to live. Zepco says shoe polishing and ironing shirts are great for decompressing. I agree. Stop letting your lady freaking press your shirt. Press your own shirt. It's a great de-stressor, and she'll probably leave you alone, right? You can listen to your music, you can listen to a podcast, you can watch a movie. You know what I'm saying? Put it on your phone, put it on, lean it up against something, and get depressing. Anyway, outside of that, yo, shout outs to y'all in the comments, leaving some great comments and great perspectives, great questions. Again, if you have any questions when it comes to this, remember that this conversation is deeper than just clothing, because style is more than just clothes. It's definitely about your life. And I just want to make sure that you guys are getting some things for you to try on to see how they fit you for real, right? If you have any other recommendations, like I'm gonna check out Hamilton today, or any disagreements, like I welcome them because conversation always will create elevation, even if it's just critical thinking and food for thought, something for me to try on. So outside of that, be great today. I don't see any other questions, so if you don't have any other questions, I'm gonna go on and get up out of here, up out of here. Yeah, that's something, right? Um, but outside of that, be great today. And oh, while you're here, make sure that you check out my YouTube channel, right? My YouTube page where I am actually talking about uh, some things that you can do to get ready for 2025. I am back on YouTube. You will see more content for me. So, Style Architects, Michael Andrew, Addressing Room, all those should get you to the point that you need to, or just send me a DM and say, hey man, I want to check out the latest YouTube video, and I'll personally send it to you as well. Outside of that, like I said, be great today, and remember that dress is nothing more than the expression of a man's state of mind. So you, yes, you should always dress to address your life and your style with rest, right? Making sure that you rest and maintaining and sustaining how you want to move in this thing we call life. All right, I'll see you next week. All right, peace.